Patience! When, my love, shall we at last come together? When at last may I encompass you with all my love? My longing has no end, but my comfort is that all our waiting must have an end, that one day we will meet completely and join not only hands together, but everything that can be joined. Just to live for that moment is joy enough, for an eternity or longer, since that joyful moment is explosive like a chain reaction, continuing forever, spreading love and joy, not only within us, but all around us. So let us be patient with our waiting, and let our longing constantly increase, if possible, to multiply the power of our love forever. Wishfulness. When we cannot meet, at least I can remember you, in words to substitute my tenderest caresses, sending them to you like sweetest dreams and prayers, like wind horses to bring comfort, joy, and happiness, although they are but momentary puffs of whims and wishes, if you will forgive my fancy and capriciousness. But in these miniature thoughts of my best wishes are, in spite of all, my truest love contained, in wished-for dreams of enduring embraces, and the sought-for union of our personalities, on wings of music, beauty, poetry, and loveliness, to bring us far above the mundane world forever, and to keep us there for our own benefit, which welfare we should spread around the world and impregnate all mankind with. Bad weather. On such a rainy day, any love can rain away. The tears you shed are not enough to wash the skies from dreary clouds, who cover us the more horrendously with pitiless deluges of misfortune, turning moods into a holocaust that frets away all clarity and robs us of our course that was so clear once, but now is all confused in shipwrecks, madness, alcoholism, and complete macabre chaos, leading us into a dance of lunacy that threatens to confound us. Lost. How shall we survive? I see no end to darkness. Even truth is clouded from our sight. My love is drowned in bottomless despair, and doubts that exile me in limbo, and I am entangled in the web of my own folly, paralyzed by Aphrodite, who is laughing at my awkwardness. I ask and pray for mercy. That is all what I can do. And worst of all is this, that you are in no better state yourself, since we are one, and your mind is the same as mine. The problem solver. All your problems are your own. That is, whatever happens to you, that is your own problem, which you have to carry out alone. You have no right to burden others with it. Only you can solve it perfectly alone. It is your own responsibility, and that is all. If you can get some help from others with it, still the problem is but yours, and you can never trust them with it. Solve your problems on your own, and you will be a free man, free to have your own integrity to share with others. The anti-addict's argument. Thy torment is my own. The tears you shed for him are my tears, and your life that he destroyed is my life. Like yourself, I cannot bear him, and yet must withstand him, with the wrecks he made of every person's life that he became a part of. Must we be dragged down into an addict's tragedy just because once someone fell in love with him, in blindness, without seeing that his life was but a waste, and devastating to whoever came into his life, of nothing but addictive self-destruction? Pardon me, but I will not have any share in it, and if you will, that must be without me. Any kind of love is transcendental. Transcendental love is too serene to be approached, too sacred to be touched, and too divine to be defined. And yet it is but love, like any kind of love, that cries for outlet and expression and demands response and feedback. Monologues are tragedies, while comedies are dialogues that carry forward and increases life, while the monologist can end up speaking but of death. So let us speak of life together and extol in life's abandonment and never give up dialogue, the mingling of our blood in pious transcendentalism, and just ignore it, whether it be spiritual or real. In love or languages of love are all the same, and transcendental metaphysics are no better and no worse than just the carnal touch. Insomnia. My love is like a sunrise that never sets again, but just keeps shining, like a soul that never sleeps, but just keeps beaming, like some constant dreaming, turning life to an explosion of not only energy, but of all kinds of creativity, and altogether a new life of wonder and of joy in almost a surrealistic way. If that is how love works, just let me love and never die, and never let me even sleep again. The mistaken musician. What's his skill worth if he only drowns it in booze? For me, those musicians are false, who abandon themselves to addiction and thereby destroy their own music, that gift of divinity that they were given to cultivate. That isn't music to me, which compels the musician to paths of destruction, which has been the destiny of most musicians that gave themselves only to jazz and to rock. For me, music is only music if it is enough pure and leads but to purity, and to a higher degree of spiritual clarity than just sobriety from common drunkenness. Music which tempts to abuse of narcotics and liquor is not really music but merely sound abuse, better than which any silence would be. For the most true and pure kind of music is that which can only come to you in silence. Fly away. Come with me, my love, and let us fly away on wings of music for a lovely day that will outlast eternity and outshine all dismay of doubts and tragedy and matters of foul play, that bring us down from heaven's lofty lay, the paradise of poetry, where all our freedom, pray, shall keep us and deliver us and stay, sustaining us forever and a day, so that at last one day we may perhaps turn over yet another leaf to have our say of glory, love and freedom, beauty and array, of truth to safeguard all to keep us gay, like in a never-ending glorious month of May, to sing the praise of Mother Nature, and for aye to keep to music, not to ever go astray. Intermezzo. Just another poem while I wait for you, a vain outsider who believes in what they say when people make appointments, and who faithfully is rather soon than late, and rather punctual than runs the risk of missing someone who might come, and waits for those who don't. And thus I have been waiting all my life, for ladies who have never come, for answers that were never made. But I don't care, for I can wait forever for my love if she's honest. That is all that counts. The only definite priority, the first and last and only true criterion of love, that you can trust her honesty, so that you can yourself be honest. For honesty is all that lasts. One word of honesty is more worth than a load of novels full of speculations, since the highest proof of honesty is that it, even if it's silent, speaks much more than words. The background lover. The less he is seen, the more he is loving. The less he is seen as a lover, the greater a lover he is, forced behind the curtain by experience, which has taught him never to be open with his love, since no one is more vulnerable than the lover, and nothing is easier to misunderstand than true love that manifests itself openly for those who are not included and not intended. Bad luck has taught him the hard way not to interfere with ghosts of the past, of former lovers of his loved ones, skeletons in the wardrobes like drunkards and addicts, whose pollution of love remain a stain and pain forever, for no wounds go deeper than aborted love. He is thereby content with the lover's part of a protector, a helper and creator of safety, a reliable friend, and that is perhaps the highest form of love, a constant faithfulness with no pretensions, with no reservations, and no end to its sustainment. The caretaker. Let me love you all, you poor lost souls, demented vagrants gone astray, you homeless, crying, doting victims of a fate that brought you down by violation, of which you were innocent, you poor beautiful forever errant knaves, raped virgins that are virgins still, since you were never willing to your rape, philosophers and hippies, new age children, addicts that were ignorant of your addiction, drunkards that were never really drunk, anonymous drug addicts, alcoholics, lovers that are saved by anonymity and therefore can remain forever on the booze and drunk as lovers, beautiful young victims of perpetual ecstasy. I shall take care of you and love you all forever, for I am the caretaker, the Orpheus forever singing for the living dead and for the dead that never die. Our love works on two different levels. Our love works on two different levels that constantly keeps playing tricks with us, which is why you are so confused, lost in the chaos of your subconscious, where all you have to cling to is your memories, the dreams you had that were so brutally shattered, but which were constructive initially, and their constructiveness remains in your surviving dreams that never died. Make me nourish them and make them live again, above all in your music, but make it twain, so that my music may accompany you along the path of life to the incessant glory of the continuous beauty of the finest love on earth, which also is the strangest and entirely our own. No fear. What are you afraid of, is your question. But I have no fears, but only worries and concerns, and I see the only threat ahead in any materialization of the essence of our union, which is purely spiritual. I want it to remain that way, so that it can be free, to soar in wild dimensions in extraordinary heavens, and thus keep alive and inspirational, and never lose the spirit. So I have no fear of flying, but alone of getting down to earth in any non-creative way that could result in fetters. So let me be free with you, so that I constantly can give you all my freedom, with unheard of dreams of beauty and perpetual construction, that we never may be tired of each other or of life. The trauma, karma story. There is more to it than just your alcoholic cavalier, his messing up of his own life and yours therewith, the bleeding wounds that can't be cured as a result, and the tremendous instability, both practical and mental, in which you find your wrecked life as a consequence. And in this fatefully amassing mess you meet with me, who only formerly has had as loved ladies talented artistic beauties with an alcoholic burden for a cavalier, whom none of them were ever able to let go. My first love had for her first love a wild drug addict, while the father of her child became a periodic alcoholic, making a complete mess of her life. My second found me to escape from widowhood, but told me nothing of two former lovers, both completely irresponsible and violent, who never let her go and with whom she made constant suicide attempts. My third had been forever marked by her beloved alcoholic husband, with a wound that had been cut around her breast, and soon with many stitches which had cut her soul in twain. In each of these three cases they would never free themselves of all those wounds inflicted by their husbands, which cut more deep into their souls than in their hearts, since they could never cease to care for them. I ask you, was it right? Did they deserve their fates, to suffer from their men atrociously for nothing? No, their failure to detach themselves from all those wounds became a self-inflicted punishment for nothing. Love must never be a punishment but a reward. If I can change your punishment to a reward, please let me. Old friends. Old friends are not just like old grass, which always grows under your feet to trample on, a nice reliable green which is there to remain and always to return after the winter's ice and snow. No, old friends are like necessary roots, the most important thing in life, and therefore we depend on our grass roots, which gives new life when we doff our shoes and stockings, walking with our naked feet directly on the ground in wholesome closest touch with Mother Nature, our life's origin, the dust which we invariably return to, which is constantly dressed up for us in lushness, all that friendship which remains to grow forever independently on how much we keep trampling on it. The glory of my love. My love is like the glory of a sunflower, continuing her beams after the sun is set, like as if never there was any sunset, while at the same time she outshines the moon in glory and in beauty, like as if the moon was always full and never went away to bring the morning. At the same time, she is like a garden full of flowers that is always flowering and never withering, since she is beauty herself personated, gloriously invigorating the whole world with overwhelming perfumes of the moon's own charm. But most of all, my love is here, and she is here to stay, like music of the purest kind that never stops to sing, and that is the supremest glory of my love. Pity. Your tears are diamonds that cry for others, costlier as pearls than any jewels, since they are not shed for those who shed them, but for others like heart-rending sacrifices, not so much for charity and pity as for empathy and pure compassion with despair. That gives them, priceless as they are, a luster rainbow-like in splendor, that enhances in immensity their value, since we talk here but of human values, human dignity, integrity, nobility, and admirableness, that rises from the ruins of destructive self-decay, the alcoholic's urge to get away from his predicament, as if to burn himself out could solve any problem. Madam Butterfly, my heart's own melody is full of melancholy, like a butterfly in winter lost in random alien land of futuristic surrealism that can't make anyone feel at home, and least of all a singing butterfly. But somehow my songs keep me up and going, since they only tell of my yearning for better worlds of more beauty, for closer love and warmer humanity, for everything that enhances life and makes it more endurable, for all those alien singing butterflies that came into this world like from another planet to use their brittle, fluttering wings to make even the worst possible world come around from dead-end troubles just to fly. Reflection. You are the peace of all my wars, the harmony that made disharmony disperse, the dream that woke me up from the intolerable madness of reality, the sanity which suddenly replaced my lunacy, the beauty that cleaned up my mind from dirt, the love acquitting my perversions, all the joy I never really had, some relaxation to ease up my stress, and finally, above all, someone I could care for, to make up for all my negligence of life, a beam of sunlight after lifetime darkness and imprisonment. In brief, would I not be a perfect fool if I ignore the possibility to love you? My offer, I love you. What does this fact imply? Unsurveyable consequences. First of all, practical problems of responsibility and action. But everything is possible, and I believe a love relationship in our case could be based on our mutual demand for freedom. For creative spirits, a stable agreement could be based on and built on thin air, since we both are wise enough to know that in this life there is nothing more stable than anything writ in water. Our mutual freedom is our major mutual urge, and that is what I have to offer you, the only thing I think that we could build some lasting love on. For me, it would be mainly work. For you, you know already that I always wished for you to further your own music in illimitable freedom and expansion. Somnambulistic telepathy, the enigma of dreams dreamt in common. The only truth about the matter, our only valid and important conversation, is a mumbling in our dreams, the things we say while we are sleeping, like some strange kind of somnambulistic love, where lovers walking in their sleep share one and common dream, which is the only truth about their most remarkable reality. They dwell together in the truth of their ideals, which no one else can share unless they find themselves in that same dream, which only can be dreamt by honest lovers, whose transcendency of love is such a fact that in their dreams reality becomes a lost nonentity, since all that matters is that perfect honesty found only in that dream they share somnambulistically in their sleep at night, and they don't even have to sleep together. Philosophy. When words are not enough, there will be silence more expressive than 1,000 conversations and 1,000,000 symphonies, if that silence harbours feelings and vibrations disciplined by thought that tends in one direction of creativeness and love. Vibration of creative thought is maybe the most potent power in the universe, and if it is well disciplined at that, there are no bounds to what it may accomplish. Harmony and melody is one manifestation of that discipline which brings a breed of brooders who with their depth of thought are carrying on their shoulders the responsibility for universal life. Evening prayer. Let the most beautiful moments of our love transform into highlights of eternity, to light the sky of our lives in constant twilight, the most beautiful and colourful moment of truth and of light's sensitivity during the day. Let the stars beam the truth of these moments throughout all the nights of our lives, to endow them with beauteous dreams and of wonder that may outlast history. Thus is my evening prayer for you, that the blessings of these lights may never leave you, but constantly watch over you like guardian angels, ordained by me for your protection, that your sleep may be as wholesome as your gentlest dreams. In reserve, the uncontrollability of love, which makes everyone mad about her, is an interesting phenomenon, since no one can control it, least of all herself, the very hub, the heart of innocence, who casually observes the insanity round her and simply cannot do anything about it, having trouble enough to keep on the defensive, to ward off the clumsiness of the rude clouts, whose madness thereby is but added to. How can I help her, since I love her myself? All I can do is to at least control and behave myself, and keep my love in humble, faithful constancy, to spite the madding, crowding turbulence of love. The twilight of departure. The twilight of departure is a sad affair, since there is no return to what is fair. You leave behind what you are unwilling to leave, and move to unknown destinations of incertitude, perhaps of tribulation, certainly of trials, to never know what you one day will be returning to, after your trials, after an infinity of changes of the world and of your character, because you'll never be the same again after a journey. But this is the test of miracles. There might be something left for you that hasn't changed, and that stability is proof of continuity, that outlasts time and change and mundane troubles, and may prove that after all, in spite of all, your love will never change. New life. A new life begins for us more difficult, a life of separation and of trial, which could be a training of our spirits to be free and stalwartly remain free, in our minds, within each other's souls, in faithfulness galore without an end, but still there are some worries. I cannot protect you any more. We cannot see each other daily any more. We have to brace ourselves against an alien reality and trust completely to our dreams alone, but that is maybe our supremest strength, the knowledge of the power of our dreams, against which earthly powers with their strifes and wars amount to nothing, since all life acknowledges but one authority, which is the constancy of love. The travelling companion. Separation of twin souls is a lie, since geographical distance has no bearing on true relationships. You go with me, I feel you by my side. It is not strange, since we are lovers. We don't have to see each other, since it's easier to feel each other, which we do invariably, depending on our constancy. Thus don't I have to miss you, since I know you better in your absence, when my senses can't play jokes with me, when I can concentrate on what you are, your presence with me being so apparent, and the more in soul you are, the more I love you for your presence, even in your present absence. Old souls meet again. One might almost say you are the best thing that has happened to me. This is wondrous strange, considering your poverty, in view of that I never was myself a rich man, nor had anything to offer you except my poverty. But we are two old souls that must have known each other long before we knew each other or were even born, like as if our reunion in this life awakened us to find ourselves alive once more, after a loss of life for many centuries. My Indian princess, or are you Arabian? Anyway, you certainly are not of this world, just as little as I am myself, but we have found each other and can thus create a new world. That's a challenge irresistible, and I would gladly try if you are with me. Come and fly away with me. Come and fly away with me beyond the clouds to surreality, where everything is just amazing, not to say astonishing and constantly surprising. For it is a land of marvels without end, where nothing is predictable nor as you would expect, and therefore never can be boring. That's my land where I live and fly, on wings of beauty and of universal love that never fails me, since I only deal with constancy. I give you willingly my hand to come along as my companion and accompaniment into my everlasting world of beauty and of music that will never cease to soothe you, worship you, and love you. Now, it's only now that counts, this fearful moment of so ominously constant truth, in which we make our present and the future, and create our history and take care of the past. And nothing stands outside this momentous, intriguing hour, in which universal destinies are solemnly determined, and lives and fates stand not a chance of being saved, if they cannot live up to the importance of the present. Here you have me in your favour for the present, loving you, and honestly I pray to God that it may last forever. That, however, is not in our power for the present to decide, but let's at least be happy for the present hour, and perhaps succeed in keeping up our happiness, so that it might spite history to outlive time. The call, the muse to her darling. Come into my world, my loved, feel yourself at home among these beauteous people who live only for idealism and golden dreams of beauty. We live for a better world than this one, which exists, a surreality which must eventually replace the low one, that of barbaric materialism and egoism, but we must not enforce ourselves, but keep to patience. Meanwhile, let us cultivate our garden and our music, all that is constructive and beautiful that favours life. So shall we love each other to give birth to that desired future of our dreams, a world of artistry and grace, of freedom of creation and expression, of magnificence, imagination and intelligence, a contrary world order to this mess of politics, this madness of control, manipulation and deceit, this havoc of ambition, egoism and greed. I offer you the contrary, which is the easiest thing, a world of harmony and discipline and common sense, ruled only by the liberal divinity of love. Trust. How much can I trust you? I trust you with my life, for you to keep and harbour in your heart forever if you like, for my life is my love, and if I cannot share it with my love, it is a waste for nothing, worth no more than nothing. So it is better that you keep it safe from me, so I don't waste it on what is not love, that is, that it is better for my love to keep it in safe custody for her own love, than it is given up on anything that is not love. My love is like 1,000 stars. My love is like 1,000 stars, each beaming and conveying different aspects of our love, each holding its own character and colour, varying like the wave lights of the sea, and flickering like the sun rays in it, each containing a profound and mesmerizing mystery of unknown depths unfathomable, and of stories whispered forth in unintelligible dreams that never can be told, explained, but only listened to. And every star of different aspects of our love has its own solar system of immeasurable compass, of more planets with more life than can be counted, each inviting to new worlds of vast discovery, and thus to our love there cannot be an end. Missing you. Missing you is like confessing to a crime. I must plead guilty without any reservation. there is nothing I can do about it, since I cannot get you here except by wishful thinking, making up your image in my dreams, wherein I still can love you passionately without any reservations, and you are not even hurt or importuned thereby. That is another freedom, but of no avail, just as to cry is nothing much to boast of. But the truth about the matter is that since I miss you earnestly, I also must needs love you earnestly. Love and friendship. The freedom of our love is maybe its responsibility and finest trait and fruit, since it is based on trust. That maybe summarizes the whole thing. Longevity of love is friendship, and where friendship lasts, love certainly will grow. The deepest love is not just passion but affection, and where this is stabilized, established, and well-founded, love becomes synonymous with friendship and self-evident. Those who really love each other need not talk about it. They just stick together like old friends in consistent and continuous communion that cannot easily be interrupted, even by the longest momentary separations. For when two souls find each other and united into one, that union cannot be more perfect, in transcendence of all vows and bonds and worldliness. Poor comfort. A poem is poor comfort for the absence of your love, but still it gives a hint of the beloved's soul and presence, and, what's even better, it remains and is no lie, but deep and heartfelt honesty. The poorest substitute for love is flesh without a spirit, carnal satisfaction without faith, while love is so much more than that and may be truest in immortal lines. I claim no such immortality, but am content with simple honesty. Black holes. In darkness shines the light of love, a truism but of some severe significance, because the light is threatened by this darkness constantly, and darkness is, as Plato found, much greater than the vulnerable light. The darkness is unfathomable in its depth, and this unendingness of dark holes in the universe is ever like a terror, since it cannot be defined. It just exists as an eternal threat against the twinkling smallness of the light, which never can, however, be put down. That is the magic of the miracle, that this eternal, overwhelming darkness always is defeated by the tiny light. In servitude, we are custodians of the muses, bound by them in lifelong thraldom to create and propagate their beauty, fettered by their inspiration to produce and serve humanity with joy, while we remain unthanked in poverty. Thus is our destiny of unfair destination to toil alone against the mainstream, pioneering to create a better, finer world against the ignorance of that majority that never knew the muses really do exist, while we are left without a choice but stubbornly to struggle on, our only real reward just being our association with and knowledge of the muses. Protest. I love you telepathically, more than anything on earth. In view of violent storms over the mountains, sweeping villages away and breaking up communications, ruining the lives and homes of farmers, I cannot endure this monumental foul play, separating us and ruining the world. My passion is destructive against this injustice, crying out in horrible despair, protesting all my love against all the dark forces of the universe. My only comfort is this solace of a fact, that our love will manage this and stalwartly survive, to spite all the destructive powers of the universe. Love by candlelight. May I call you my love, my lovely? What a shameful and presumptuous question. I call you names without asking, and ask your permission afterwards, when the importuning already has been made. What a shameful and unabashed conduct. It just fell on my mind in this candlelight, in a purely romantic and natural mood, to call you that name which forever is yours in my mind, and which sometimes demands some expression. So forgive me my bold importuning, but let me just whisper that name in your ear again, with full guarantee that you only may hear it, of names most misused, but also most honest, my love. In the hopelessness of natural catastrophe. In the hopelessness of natural catastrophe, my only comfort is to think of you, with tears of sorrow for all those who lost their homes, but all the more for missing you. My life is split by hard responsibilities for work, for people, and for you, while my most practical sport, my greatest pride and pleasure, is completely to ignore myself, to concentrate on what is more important, that is, my responsibility and love. So I beg you to forgive me if I sometimes must neglect you for responsibilities, but be aware that they are only there for the expansion of my constant love. A confession. What is a lover without stains? My greatest fault, if you'll forgive some straight confession, is my incredulity and doubtfulness. I never could believe in love nor trust a lady, letting my love be corrupted by mistrust and jealousy for nothing. It was maybe that old green-eyed monster, which appears whenever love appears as its backside and contrary, but fortunately I could always well control it, piously preferring self-inflicted torture to myself than hurting others. But the worst was always the incurable and persecuting doubts, which usually, unfortunately, proved too true. Thus every love affair I had was shipwrecked on the shoals of doubtfulness and hard reality, my love surviving only in my lonely, ruined heart, in constant fickle hope of better luck next time. Some health sign. There is no surer sign of your good health than that your mind is free and wanders easily on wings of music or imagination and creation, without being fettered to concerns of the corporal body, pains and aches and worries, hypochondriacal superficialities, because your mind, your soul and spirit and identity was born and incarnated free, and nothing ever should obstruct or sabotage that freedom, which is your insurance and your only guarantee of health. So there, my love, I earnestly beseech you to keep free and well, so that I never may stop loving you, so that we always may be co-dependent on each other's freedom, and protect it, safeguard it, and cultivate it, so that our creativeness may never cease. Wishful thinking. Powerless and awkwardly bereft all strength, I cry to my beloved from the depth of darkness and despair, to in my languishment evoke a dream that maybe still remains of perfect love, a perfectly ideal relationship and union of our souls in prayer for humanity and all that madness that so desperately governs this so aberrated world. But our love can save it, and that is my dream. No darkness, no atrocities, and no demented violence can touch or violate this dream, since our love is sacred and a wonder at that too. So let us pray across the borders of our separation to redeem humanity with our love and with it all civilization. Nature. The overwhelming character of nature is something that man never can describe, nor live up to, grasp, or even understand, since nature ever is man's total master, against which man ever has to fail in awkward and pathetic, constant and ridiculous defeat, since man must ever in comparison with Mother Nature stand a miserable, naked, lost and stolid child. The greatness and the wilderness and power of Dame Nature must constantly reduce the vanity of man to nothing, and the only way to tame her and cooperate with her is to respect her sovereignty and accept her terrible supremacy in self-humiliation, and to never try to challenge her, for she alone has sense to know what life is all about. Constancy. I send you constantly my love. I don't know if you feel it, but my constancy is well enough for me, and I believe as long as this my constancy is true, you also with your intuition will be faithful to the beauty of our union, this our friendship, which must be considered something of a strange coincidence, a kind of fortunate release from previous traumas, and a platform for the future to create and build on. I feel our relationship is perfectly constructive. We have never hurt each other yet, and, as I said once previously, I don't think that we can. So what else is there to do but to continue this persistently constructive, glorious constancy? Gratitude. So far my love has been acceptable to you, and I am grateful for it. Take it as an offering of humbleness and gratefulness for that this love is possible. Some say I fell a victim to the cruelest women who only taught me the impossibility of love, of their own hard experience, hardened nature, hardened pride and arrogance, which only taught them self-love. But with you somehow true love was suddenly released, a new amazing possibility was found in beauty's orchid bud, of honesty and sensitivity, of wisdom coupled with extremest intuition, and I was released from lifelong dull imprisonment of no love. So what else can I then offer you but my sincerest gratitude, that I may love you and that you receive my love? The lover. What is a lover? Someone to be alone with, on your own, to dream about when he is absent, to always have him handy as a trust, to be able to rely on completely, and to be certain of, whatever distances and absences. A friend to be at one with always when you need him, even when you cannot reach him. To always think about and live with in your thoughts, another ego of your own to be able to respect and to never fail to honor, sure of trust, since you know for certain about a lover that he never fails you. In the Night. The headline of this poem came from Robert Schumann's piano piece with the same title, which could be listened to as an appropriate accompaniment to these troublesome lines. When in the sleepless night I think of you, and worship you the more for all my torment, nothing can more strengthen me in my conviction, in my faith in you for all your absence, than the fact that you light up my sleepless night, and turn it into harmony, security, and welfare. Is it may be that you seek me with your ghost and mind, like I seek yours, heroically spiting distances, and lacks of any urgently desired means of straight communication. Certain is the fact that my unsettled ghost is out and hunting desperately for your contact by whatever means. Thus maybe we can meet in spite of all, as lovers somewhere beyond this constrained reality, to there unite and stay united without any more constraint. Regretting love. A strange theoretical question arises. Has anyone ever regretted his love? I must say that everything speaks for a no. I never found anyone anywhere, not even in all world literature and our history, who in whatever preposterous way has said, I regret that I ever gave my love to her or to him. Are there any exceptions? Not even poor mothers of criminals have, to my knowledge, regretted the love of their lost ones. Not even the raped victim can fail to feel some compassion for the most condemnable of all transgressions. Nor even can I regret any of my many moments of love. Not one single of them, although God knows that all cost me more than I could ever give. An opening. How would you want our relationship? Sleeping together or just neutral friendship? Whatever you wish, I will grant it, with no reservation as far as I can. If you still are a virgin, let's keep you that way. If that is your desire, I will never trespass you. If you want children, let's postpone that question until we get started. Of course, you'll prefer your vocation and work, which, however, does never exclude love, but rather demands it, like I have my duties and hopeless condition of workaholism. We are flexible both and can compromise infinitely, since that is one of love's many miracles. Suddenly impossibilities turn into practical feasibleness, all doors open, all locks are unlocked, and the only thing left is an endlessness of opportunities and possibilities. My care. It is so long ago I wrote a poem to your dedication, not because I have forgotten you, but from neglect, confused by crises on my journey which upsets it all the time and throws me in the doldrums of exasperation and despair, disheartening me to the point of no return from the black hole of desperate defeat. But you are there still somewhere, way beyond the rainy clouds, like some ethereal dream of something better than my ruin, like a promise of some sunshine after all, when all these desperate accursed rains have passed away and left us with the ruins of a wrecked country, dismally transformed into a havoc just for nothing, for the weather play and waters to destroy our lives and throw us deep into depression. And for what? I just don't care, since you are there, which is my better care. Leaking tents, the trekker's nightmare. It's not just that it's wet and dreary, but it's freezing cold as well, and there is no way to get warm in soaked blankets and with drippings following you mercilessly in whatever way you turn to helplessly escape the cold and pouring streams that find their way wherever you have something sensitive like papers, books, your camera, your toilet paper, and whatever that cannot survive a touch with water will be sought out by the waters of the leaking tent to cheer you up and force you out of bed with an umbrella, sitting upright all the night in freezing cold until the rain stops, which it never does. It could be worse, though. Drippings only torture, but if something happens to the ground and waters move it, you'll end up in a flood of mud and never wake up any more. Another cup of tea. My love is like a cup of tea that never can be finished, but is amiably replenished every time you finish it, like a perpetuum mobile, for thus works love ad infinitum. There is nothing in the world to stop it. No one can get through with it. It is the most unsolvable of problems that demands a constant entertainment to be carried on to the delight of those who never tire of the sport, but live just for the exercise of love's eternally miraculous expansion. Rest. Rest with me like I will rest with you, on an exquisite bed of flowers made for you, made softer by the gentle touch of our delicacy, and richer by our lengthened dreams of sweetness that have the strange habit to be constantly prolonged into interminably unsurveyable continuations, like a novel or a symphony that never ends, but just continues to develop and expand into more wondrous and delicious new beginnings. But from this constantly developing and never-ending epic, we need pauses. So, my friend, come rest with me, and I will rest with you, and thus we shall sleep well together. Falling stars. Who needs a constellation of the Virgin to depict you, when the starry night presents the entire Milky Way for a sufficient illustration of your bounty, of the depth and richness of your soul, and of your overwhelming beauty, which I can lie comfortably on the ground, just staring at it, meditating over it forever, while I count the stars that fall, each one as one more stroke of luck from you, each one another ray of light and message from the Milky Way of grace and love and kindest thoughts from you. Thus do we communicate in flashes, fast but absolute and without end, each falling star conveying this important universal message of the interchange of love between all constant lovers. The artist's dilemma. He can but create alone and must have solitude for concentration, focusing and freedom from disturbance, which makes him an alien and must affect his natural relationships, at worst distorting him into an antisocial personality, a monster and a freak incapable of natural relationships, quite often winding up in sadomasochism and tragical self-torture, like a monk stuck in a dead end of exaggerated discipline. But if the artist leaves this perilous self-centeredness, he risks his contact with the muses, his creativeness, his soul, or that is what he thinks. What he must learn is compromise, which always solves all problems, the supreme necessity, for no one can do without love, and no one can do without company. The muses often hide behind your friends and speak through them, and, most important, love is never only for yourself. The glow of love. The glow of love remains and never fails, but keeps on warming our hearts, refilling constantly our energy of fire that seems never to burn out, but on the contrary continue to expand its warm intensity, as if our love just kept on constantly renewing its amazing strength and lasting continuity. Thus keep my verses all the time repeating that same story that seems never to grow old, that love is ever young as long as it remains, and never can get older than its summer freshness, just as long as it just keeps on burning, without ever burning itself out, its glow renewing and continuing to warm our souls, the more our love keeps on consuming us. How can you love me? How can you love me? I am like a satyr beyond recognition, masked, disfigured, and corrupted by a goat's beard, behind which I hide a face completely ruined by old age and many decades of foul living, summing up a despicable failure of a life that never any woman could accept. Thus am I burnt out by a self-consuming fire, shattering persistently my soul and body, with self-torturous, outrageous pain and longing just to be with you, my heart's desire, that I well know I might never reach, since you are all that I am not. And still my hope keeps me right on that crooked path of blundering and foundering in pursuit of that dream of one day maybe, despite everything, reach any kind of love with you, just you, and never anybody else. Longing. Just let me sleep with you and be with you, adore you and caress you in my dreams, in perfect gentleness and softness, without any humdrum trivial matter to disturb us, only you and me together in a dream that never ends, which I must dream alone without you, calling for you in my desperation of relentless sleeplessness, with only the minutest glimpse of hope of comfort, that I know that you exist and after all may still be faithful to the beauty of this dream we have together, which I pray we one day never shall wake up from any more, since that is all the truth we need to keep on living. This illusion of a love that might be some kind of reality, and in that case so much more important than that cruel reality which keeps us separated. On his illness. When in a crisis situation my health fails me, and I crawl decrepitly on all fours to clean up my devastation, the annihilating horrible reality of my incontinence, I can but cry in misery about how utterly unworthy I am now, an aging clown no longer in control and charge of his own body, may be the beginning of a lifelong downhill degradation and humiliation leading down into some black hole of the final tragedy, the inescapable defeat, the ruin that awaits us all in the conclusive demolition of our life, all that we lived for, our identity and personality, and even all our memories, experience and deserts. But one thing must remain untouched by all this misery, and that is love, of course, untouchable, serene, and incorruptible, which on its own alone shall ever conquer all that ever even tried to bring it down. Just another one. My thoughts are constantly with you, incapable of leaving you, keeping pious company with you as a desired guardian angel of my own construction and imagination, but nevertheless and even more for you the faithfulest protection, replenished with the piety of all my love. Thus keep I burning for you willingly and ardently with all my love, to keep you spiritual company at least in the regretted absence of your presence physical. But something tells me that in love nothing is more important than the piety and faith and will to love, and the ambition never to forsake it. Budding miracles. Do you feel it when I love you? Do you feel my tenderly caressing thoughts, my wishful thinking dreams of total generosity, my universal well-wishing for you, my total honesty in universally wide opening my heart for you, my over self-indulgent love for only you? Our love is like a flower opening her buds to gradually reveal her secret and undreamt of glories, one by one in careful calculated portions, never to completely bluntly throw it all wide open, but instead to open up forever more and more, and without ever ceasing this expanding process, and to never close it. Thus our love continues, an expanding miracle, with no end to its possibilities, its wonders, and its beauty. Journey's end. What does it matter that my journey goes so slow, outrageously fatiguing and annoying, in its horrible monotonous and trying toughness, when, as luck would have it, you are there to think of, who enlightens it, who follows me on my outrageous wanderings, and keeps me on my feet when I should fall, succumb and give up to the pessimism of my misfortune, being constantly with me and in my prayers as my indefatigable guardian angel. You not only keep me going on my feet, but keep me flying in the air above the clouds, to even more ensure my safety and my good arrival in your arms at this precarious journey's end, which is, in fact, the only thing I ever left you for. The Himalayan Symphony. Do you hear the hills resounding with this glory of our symphony of triumph, glorifying all the beauty of the world, of all the freedom of Dame Nature, of our harmony and love? Thus sings my heart for joy, and hovers without bounds among the highest mountains, just to sing the praise of all the beauty of this world, of you, our friendship, and our love. What matters the extremest separation in a case like this, when love just frees itself from all the confines of the world, of all mortality, of matter, space, and time, to just exist in glory, flying clear above all vanity, and gloriously enjoy the highest, purest music, that of perfect silence in eternal stillness. The sublimest music of the soul, transcending heaven and eternity. Riding the whirlwind. My love is flying on wings of fire, never to rest but to always continue, forever ahead to new continents of exploration, a nomad and rover and wanderer, restless incurably like the wild wind, but the freer for being without any bonds, or without any will that in any way can tie her down, since she is only love, and love cannot exist and survive but as free as the whirlwind. And no one can tame love except he who rides any whirlwind, the highest, most difficult and most advanced of all sports, but the only one worth all the painstaking trouble, the ultimate art, which the effort of conquering only is its own reward, and the finest as such in existence. The worst trauma of any journey is usually the cultural shock that awaits you at home. The fugitive's homecoming. What business has the fugitive at home? He cannot be accepted, no one wants him. There is nothing for him to come home to except loneliness and strife, his family ignoring and despising him, the basis of his unacceptability, the ruin he was born to, his unfair predestination to a lifelong punishment of exile, scarring him with unjust stamp of prejudicial doom, for no specific reason other than his personality, that somehow seems too much out of this world, and yet he has to eat and sleep and live and labor somewhere, somehow, and that is his only rescue. He can work. And if that personality is such that all his work can only be creative, all the better, then he will have some support and backbone in eternity, and all he has to do is obstinately to work hard with his creation, and he will be more triumphant after death than any mortal conqueror. The bleeding heart, Mater Dolorosa. There are wounds that never heal, and worst of all are heart wounds, that must bleed forever most profusely until the frail heart has wasted all and broken up in pieces of her scattered sorrows. Heart wounds do not bleed themselves to death, but rather cry out their indulgent inundation until that poor heart, the tender fountain, is dried out, and cannot keep on crying out the tears of blood, since they have drowned and dried up in her wasting, devastating pain and sorrow. So if you meet with a mother who can shed no tears, forbear with her, because she has been crying all her life, and only tears of blood, and has none left to cry, since she is only waiting for her heart to finally break up in mercy. Lost souls in the abyss of spirituality. We found each other in the abyss of the soul, both stuck in that black hole, the worst of all, a bog of no escape, a swamp of wet sentimentality, a well of feelings without any end or bottom to its darkness, the most hopeless and incurable of prisons. But in those black depths of utter darkness, there is that which keeps us going and alive, in different dimensions in another better world of sensitivity, prolonged antennas, extra strange phenomena, like vertigo existence out of normal order and our bodies, telepathic qualities and other weird stuff just for freaks, which makes us freer actually in this our prison of the soul than all those who are bound by opposite impediments, like property, a house and car and junk and practical responsibilities, that fetter them to the most desperate of chain gangs called mortality, which is the ignorant majority of all this miserable poor humanity. So what have we then to complain about? As outsiders, we are completely free from this outrageous mortal coil, and in this perfect liberty, which gives us wings, we can just go on flying and forever and together. Reunion. Our difficulty is not with ourselves, but with this alien world of ignorance, which fails to see and recognize the obvious, all the beauty, sensitivity, nobility of soul and mind, all the refinement which you can turn life into a work of art with, if you only leave barbarity and coarseness, rudeness and vulgarity behind with all destructiveness, and live for love alone with its constructiveness. It pains my heart to see you suffer in this climate of a barren Nordic stale and hard mentality, for your so tender heart of gold that easily cries blood can never be adjusted to this grey society of stony hearts that hide behind a mask of an infallible bureaucracy that never can do any people any good. But take it as a challenge. We can make this desert flourish if we only stick to love and use it well. Poetry enthroned. There is no need for any other law than poetry. Make her the queen of all existence in her everlasting glory, that must outlast all that junk called vanity and ugliness, which only show up in this world to pester and pollute it, for no other good than tragedy, the trap which all humanity so enthusiastically marches into, fooled by the deceivers of short-sightedness and fickle profit, for which sake man drowns himself in any madness and insanity most willingly, and hardly sees himself through even afterwards. But poetry remains, with beauty and idealism as champions. The last romantic hero isn't even born yet and shall never be, for they belong to poetry's and beauty's court of everlasting light, and can't be even tempted from the sovereignty to step down, to follow suit with this demented, ugly, sick, and decayed world, which politicians think they rule, unable to get into their thick heads that politics is nothing but the madness greenhouse of megalomania, where there are no other masters running the asylum than the vainest power of them all, the ultimately and completely egoistic opportunist's self-destructiveness. Simplicity. It couldn't be more simple. Yes, of course I love you, but I am a giver only and no taker. All I want is nothing for myself, but everything for you. And since your health condition is so delicate, I will not ever risk to jeopardize it, but protect it only. So my answer to your question of what I expect is nothing for my own part. As an artist bent on one-sided creativeness, it is excluded that I would desire anything from you except perhaps the wish that you would keep what I would give you. See my poems as documentations of my feelings, a tempestuous inner world that ever moves and changes, but which never gets out of control. And of my love, of course, which is quite undeniable, but of a rather purely altruistic kind, that never can get negative, destructive, morbid, or insane, but is, I am afraid, a rather hopeless case of one-sided constructiveness. Woodstock in retrospect after 37 years. It was all a craze, of course, a most absurd idea of most immoderate proportions, a phantasmagoria of surrealistic recklessness, to stage this concert of megalomania for an audience of 500,000, all well fed with food and drink and any drugs for half a week, with children getting born during the concert and some others dying, everything allowed, the music being anything and perfectly without self-criticism. And still there was something spectacularly sane about this whole flipped-out event. So many people gathered just for music's sake to be together in a ruse, intoxicated like on something so out of the ordinary as a common trip, to never really get completely back again, and for a number of them never to recover. None of us was there, and still it feels today as if it was but yesterday, and as a great historical concern for all of us, not 37 years away, but recently, and in that omnipresent zone of timelessness that you are constantly in touch with as a practicing musician. The idea was very good, no matter how it sounded, and whatever were the consequences. On the sea of love. Are you the victim of the ocean, or are you the ocean? All your feelings are your own, but they will blow you anywhere, without your being able to resist them, although you, as their possessor, are alone entirely responsible for them. So, are you the wind that blows, or are you the skipper of the tossed ship that sets the sails to how the wind blows, risking shipwreck on the way, and without knowing whether you will ever reach a port? The wind is yours, the ship is yours. Just keep afloat, enjoy the wind and keep it going, and at least you won't lack any entertainment on a sea that tends to get the funnier the more outrageously you keep on blowing. Exhaustion. Where do they all come from, all these tiring, wasted wrecks of wretches who exhaust you by their extremism, the limbo people without roots and aims, who only live for their eccentricism, as if life's only meaning was excessiveness, at any cost, by any means, whatever the results, and they ignore completely that they leave you wasted in the ditch as they have passed you by and driven you completely over by their wastefulness of energy, of nonsense, of big deals for nothing, of their hopelessly excessive vanity inflation. Of their hopelessly excessive vanity inflation. But the other people, those who are more normal, can't you stick with them who for a change are sensible? They are not easily accessible since they are usually at work and are not seen at home except late in the evening, when as burnt-out cases they arrive, and early in the morning when they have to go to work without much rest, and having usually endured a night of nightmares or insomnia. Those, the normal people, are not much to celebrate, since they are generally boring, and thus don't you have much else than all those extremists who loiter without work and just keep on exhausting you with their relentless pathos, being better than the others in at least that they are never boring. The wrecker. My love is an incessant stormy ocean that keeps beating me asunder from my wits, a shipwrecked fool completely lost at sea and tossed to madness by its hammering atrocity. And as a lover you are hopelessly alone with this too overwhelming darkness of a cruel night, your feelings drowning you and pulling you straight to perdition. Yet you are alive and can still fight for your survival, even if you as a forlorn lover are completely on your own and have no mercy to expect from anyone. A lover lost is worse off than a ruined pauper. Still there is a plank left of your shipwreck, one last hope, if even that is the last straw, and even if that only is your own imagination. Passion. When passion comes and takes you from behind, what can you do? You have no other choice but to succumb to its relentless wildness, darkness, terror and destruction, and must be the victim of your own emotions, overwhelming you with hopelessness and no escape, no possibility for any shadow of defense. For passion is the ultimate manifestation of the darkest force of nature, in her greatest irresistibility and her omnipotence, her majesty and dreadfulness of silence like of death. And yet in this black hole of hopelessness there is a kind of life, more tough in its expansion than the most victorious sperm, triumphant in its life and glorious in outbreak. So what can we do about the force of passion? There is nothing else to do but just the best of it. The haunted humanity. The ghosts that haunt you are the spectres of this insane world and age, the phantoms of derailment and the enemies of love, that make spontaneous love impossible and keep us fettered in Orwellian restrictions, isolated in unhuman cubicles of so-called work and duties that are just one way to the asylum, made more comfortable by the horrors of medicinal society that give you pills to poison you, relieving you of life, which anyway is just unbearable because of this society. They say we are too many people on this earth, and therefore the majority expects a sudden instantaneous destruction that would finish off the sick majority which only suffers anyway. And thus the thoughts and speculations of this world continue to get sicker. There is only one health sign remaining. Love can never get corrupted while it lives and keeps on loving. Never mind about the children and forget about your sex life if the health state or the world demands such sacrifices for the sake of humankind's survival. But let never go of love. It is for us to cherish as the only thing that ever will continue keeping us alive. The workaholic. Is he to be pitied or is he to be envied and admired? Maybe both or neither, since he is the victim of his happiness. He's productive and enjoys his work, but has got stuck in it, like in a vicious circle, but of happiness and glory, which he can't get out of. Oftentimes you see most doubtful consequences of this queer anomaly, like difficulties with relationships, divorce and misery, which usually just spurs him on to even harder efforts, and thus is his most precarious condition only made the worse. The problem is that there is no one who can help him. Only he himself can liberate him from his prison, of his work, his paradise and bliss, his sadomasochistic self-destructive torture, and his most unnatural and perfect hell, which undeniably and more often than not will end up with producing end results of most amazing quality that will remain and prove to outlast vanity. The Humanist's Complaint by my old friend and colleague Dr. Sandy in Athens. Is idealism then dead and buried just because materialism drives it over? Is humanism then to capitulate to ruthless unhumanity? Must love then constantly give way to hatred, since hatred otherwise destroys her? Must gentleness then succumb to hardness just because hardness doesn't care? Must then beauty be replaced by ugliness just because ugliness expands? Must then life give up to death only because death exists? Yes, alas, as long as justice is controlled by injustice, since thereby suicide is justified, the ultimate protest against evil, injustice, inhumanity and godlessness, in a highest possible appeal of life, in the final resort to despair crying out, in the highest and loudest outcry of existence which outcries all eternity. Sea of love. It's all for you, my loved, all my sea of love, of endless care and generosity, of all my life and its creativeness, my whole production and all that I lived for, all the beauty I have lived for, all my music above all. Just take it, drown in it, protect it and enjoy it. Let my music's affluence inspire you and match the generosity and full length of your gorgeous hair, and be magnanimous, magnificent and magic with the manifoldness of this sea that I bequeath you, greater than the lands of all the earth and richer with its endlessness of life and love that man can never understand or fathom, except lovers of the same kind of dynamic bottomlessness, as creative freaks like you and me, both drowned in our abyss of the ultimate perfection of the beauty of pure music, manufactured and created only out of the profoundest melody of love that only can be found beyond the depths of all the oceans. The Funhouse High Priest, a satire-like never-ending story collected from some recent inside information, also a kind of doctor's nightmare. He is a prophet in his own right, since he is always right, his self-righteousness breaking all records, since he squints to his right side with what I believe to be an enamel eye, for he never looks you in the eye. Still, as a doctor, he knows exactly what medicines to feed you with, and believes he cures of everything in his own right infallibility, although you flush them all down the toilet. Since you prefer staying alive and sane, so that you can observe the established insanity of your own infallible doctor and his nurses, who keep feeding him with medicines, mind you, that he never prescribes for his patients, since he wants to be sure that he only gets well himself and no one else, since he needs his patients to provide his hospital with income and enough guests to ensure stately subsidies, without which his funhouse wouldn't be so funny anymore, but would be shut down, since all the patients got away and all the nurses fatally intoxicated from the medicines provided by the doctor, so that they would comply well on the couch day and night, and forget about all the healthy patients, which they so miserably failed to make sicker, since they all flushed down all their medicines in the toilet. Aloof. Your aloofness does not bother me. I am not hurt by anyone's detachment, which on the contrary increases my respect. Detachment being always sane and healthy, and the more, the deeper feelings are involved. And I, if anyone, am well aware of depths of feelings, and the storms that rage under the surface, hidden well under the invisible cloak, not of a mask, but from necessity, in order not to let them die, but live forever. If you give them out for mortals to manhandle, then there will be hurts and undesired end to them. But flowers are best cultivated in protection. It's a simple question of survival, and I will support it, never risk it, live and cultivate my love, and never interfere with others doing likewise. Abandoned. Come and rest a while, my love. You must be tired, since you worked so hard, escaping from the heart of darkness and the savage hunters, who made you a scapegoat for their vices, and bereft you everything for nothing, for some petty theft, as if you were a person to be robbed, the poorest thing I ever knew, whom I so gladly would have given everything, but who was proud enough to give me thanks for nothing. Independence being more worth than the highest treasure, liberty and sovereignty being not for sale. What can I give you then? What can I do for you? I'm afraid I can't do anything, except, of course, continue to adore you, and sustain my love for you the more persistently and diligently for your distance and departure, and the hopelessness of that impossibility to reach you. They have alienated you from me, your only perfect lover, all those other lovers who just wanted to annoy you, use you up by their destructive, despicable opportunism, while your ideal lover let you get away and was the only one to piously leave you in peace, while you have fooled them all and cheated them of all their love, escaped their baseness and made them all cuckolds, while the only one who really lost you, your most faithful lover, I myself, yours truly, is the only one who still possesses you, the dreamer, who in losing you has only as the only one secured you, being one with you in spirit and in fate, more bound to you than any law agreement can ensure, and being with you the more definitely now for being lost without you. Controversial. My love, your openness and frankness cannot hurt me, and I told you so from the beginning. All I wanted was your welfare, and I want it still and more than ever, now especially when I can see your turbulences, what you have gone through and what you need, which simply is a general dismantling of your love affairs, completely every one, so that you can find peace and work with what is meaningful and more important than ridiculously self-degrading dallying with childish games of intrigue with unworthy knaves that are a bit too fast in making women pregnant whom they then are stuck with for their misery until they are compelled to leave them, adding some more lonely mothers with their children on their own. My dear, I am no friend of sex, since I have seen too much abuse, and almost only this abuse of one-sided destructiveness, and very little good results and lasting happiness from sex. In fact, a sum of almost nothing. Be at liberty, enjoy your freedom, use it well for good, constructive purposes, creation, work, and charity, but you live better without sex, the main corrupter and polluter and destroyer of mankind. The underground humanist. There is maybe a need for a general underground resistance movement of this kind. We are the nomads of eternity who don't fit into this derailed world of brutality, since we are alien to its dominating ugliness and are too soft in our music to tune in to noise. Thus are we outsiders and outcasts who do not belong to this corrupted world of tyrannies, dictators, wars, barbarity and violence, since we never can conform to what is not constructive. We must never be a part of all that we abhor and stubbornly protest against, but rather safeguard and protect in isolation our ideals and work for them unflinchingly in underground conditions, to once let them conquer all and vanquish ugliness and unhumanity, to let civilization glory once again in splendid beauty, and let nature conquer all man's unnaturalness, and bring him back to normal, that is peace and decency, to make love possible at all for the creation of a future. On the birthday of Queen Elizabeth I, September 7th, the Virgin Queen Gloriana, the old maid. I know that you despise me all, you young infernal lads, like Balzac did, who wrote some novels only to express his hatred of us. But excuse me, we are not old virgins for no reason. We are capable of learning and observing, and it is too obvious what you men are capable of, and never hesitate to plague us with, destroying not your own lives only, but intentionally making a big mess, and with a vengeance, most of all to innocents. Let's not just speak of the abortions, all those cases that turned pregnant accidentally and unintentionally, just because the bugger happened to come home too early and too fast. I think we owe most cases of poor solitary mothers who cannot support their undecided children to those bastards. Let's not say a word of all those women psychologically ruined and destroyed for life by accidental and unfortunate miscarriages, due to rapes and other accidental and unfortunate maltreatments. Let's not lose ourselves in those discussions, whether such occurrences are acts of love or not, which you males always claim they are, while the results prove differently. Well, let's not talk about such things at all, but let's just leave all those poor men alone who cannot handle women properly as human beings, and they might perhaps learn likewise to leave us alone, like I do mercifully and persistently with them, so that both they and I can work in peace with more constructive matters, like for instance dedicating our energy to love, which actually involves more gentleness, politeness and respect than just that vulgar, sleazy, dirty game called sex. Autumn. How many days remain for you to roam around this harrowed earth, so painfully and deeply scarred by failures, mostly only failures, not just of your own, but of so many lost and wasted lives, and, worst of all, too many friends who died too young. I could write epitaphs in all eternity just to bewail them and cry out their sorrows and my own, for what they failed in, what they never could accomplish, all their unfinished, invaluable work, and most of all, the loss of their two precious souls. But they are still out there somewhere, waiting maybe for another opportunity, or for a better world, but they could wait for that forever, since we haven't seen much betterment for some millennia. Sorrow keeps me company with falling leaves, in flaming colours red of blood or love or both, while no tears are enough to cry out all the pain of this so wasted, tragical and futile life and world. In a musical sense, what is life? An accurate question which pinpoints the essence not only of life but of existence. In the beginning was not the word but music, and what on earth was all that music about? We certainly hadn't heard all that jazz before, and the question is if it sounded at all, so at least it could not have sounded bad. Let me put it like this. In the beginning there was a kind of flow, of some kind of idea that must have been musical, because it produced such a tremendous effect that we had a kind of big bang. It's impossible to recollect or reconstruct, but it certainly was there, and it was music as the source of everything, as the dark horse behind everything that rides, and that is life itself, the only motivation of which is music. Reggie Perrin, analysis of the famous syndrome. It's not a crisis, it's just a character development. Suddenly one morning you wake up to find, to your amazement, that your life was all futility, and you see through everything with clearness for the first time, and recognize the vanity of human wishes, toil and bother. What have I been doing all my life, you ask yourself, astonished, and you realize you haven't lived at all. All of a sudden, sex becomes dispensable. You see through all your partners of the past that you don't need them. Love transcends into a higher plane of soulmates. Endless friendship suddenly becomes the only acceptable relationship. And you don't even need your property and money. Suddenly detachment from all worldly matters becomes vital and much more important than materialistic fuzziness and all the world. And love takes on a religious aspect. You turn a philosopher, stuck with your head in heaven and enjoying it, at last discovering the real reality among the clouds. You wake up from a nightmare of ridiculous concerns, like from an illness, to turn into something natural and human for a change. Congratulations, you just made it getting normal and converted from this mundane mess of mainstream brainwash. The suicide party of David Braithwaite. It was a very strange festivity some years ago at Corinth, Greece, the story of which Dr. Sandy told me, who was there. Let's leave the host alone. He had the party of his life, an unforgettable farewell, to which he generously summoned not only all his friends, but any kind of wayward outsider and displaced person. Many hippies, alcoholics, tramps and tarts, with even children, whom he gave a most luxurious dinner. with food and drink that never saw an end, Retsina wine and Greek salads galore, the atmosphere replenished with both joy and sorrow. Everybody laughed and had a good time, while at the same time no one's eye was dry. When the eccentric host made his farewell and welcome speech, with ample thanks to everyone just for their coming, to be present as a delightful company to his demission. No one thought at first that he was serious, but he had actually invited all available Bohemians in Greece just for his company and give them all a party for his funeral. What people best remembered afterwards were those almost unnoticeably small remarks of bitterness, which indicated a most overwhelming disappointment in the field of love and women. He had loved, but more than what was good for him, and unsuccessfully. This is no story really for a poem, but should rather be the subject of a play, which shall be written, with the documentary material as its delicate, heartbreaking base, maybe next time I go back to Greece. In defense for the delicacy of ideals, don't cut my dreams down. Do whatever harm you will to me and to my life, but let me keep up my ideals, since I can see no other purpose of my life and nothing else to really live for. They say it's dangerous to wake up a somnambulist, but even worse and almost worse than any crime is to bereave a person of his natural ideals, his love, his piety and dreams. But real ideals can never really be defeated. They keep on coming back. Creativeness can never have a setback, but can only be renewed. So there is actually no danger, really. Just let the somnambulist walk on in safety on his clouds and smiling in his dreams, and no harm will come out of it, while no one knows what fearful things could happen if you touch and crush an individual's universe, conserved well in a dream, but that might well contain the key to universal safety for humanity. The lone wolf's story in a world where wolves were exterminated, or an ordinary immigrant's story. The alien's argument. Sorry, I don't belong to you. You are a different kind of aliens whose language I don't speak, whose laws I don't accept, and whose mentality is alien to freedom, since you don't accept alternative mentalities of freedom, feelings, softness, sensitivity, and that capacity to feel life by antennae, vibrating in alien dimensions and accepting other languages than just the physical and spoken ones. So I must be an alien to you, preserve my oversensitive integrity behind an oyster's shell of shyness, and if my work doesn't please you, or can't be understandable to you, so let me then at least continue working as an alien without you. Blind love. You just have to face the music. Love will ever play the dirtiest tricks on you and never be the same, but always puzzle you, upset you, never be reliable, and always blindfold you, so that you never can see clear reality, but always must fall victim to it as to love. Since blind reality of love will always lead you quite astray. You will love anyone who isn't worth it, and you will be cruelly abused by anyone who just will take your blindfolded condition as an opportunity to lead you any stray path down to hell just for the fun of it. And you will end up as a wreck, completely crushed, like in a shipwreck, all entangled in the shattered ruins of your lost ideals. But there is always a way out and a salvation. Just keep your blindfold on, refuse to compromise with false reality, continue challenging the cruelty of the world by countering it and opposing it with your alternative, your own created world of beauty, which most certainly will outlast this vain world of futile nonsense. The object of your love will constantly play foul on you, and most outrageously, but that must never check your love, which ever must keep flowing to enrich, if nothing else, at least the spiritual world of sentient beings, which ever will be hungering and needing more of that true love of honesty, which is the reason for your life. Through the minefield, let me guide you carefully across the minefield of abysmal trenches, thorns and scorpions, poison ivy and what not, so that your bare feet will not stumble into any bomb, but tread on safely like on clouds with maximum security, like a professional sleepwalker. Just rely on me and hold my hand, and your poor blind sight will not lead you wrong, but safely to the other side through any ambush that will miss you most completely, since I will make you invisible to any danger, any rotten scoundrel that would trap you, who instead shall fall into his own deceit. You may be sure I will see to it thoroughly, so be not apprehensive or afraid of anything. Just keep your fingers crossed and prayers going, and my love shall save you from whatever, so that nothing evermore will threaten you again. This was compared by a colleague with a beautiful poem by Yeats. He wishes for the cloths of heaven. Had I the heavens embroidered cloths, inwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the dark cloths of night and light and the half-light, I would spread the cloths under your feet, but I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. When anger hits you on the nose, 9/11 and all that. When anger hits you on the nose, the urge to strike back gets on overwhelming. But you can't strike back while still your nose is bleeding. You just have to swallow it and bide your time. And as your anger thus is laid to rest, you soon forget about it. And the motivation disappears to do something about it. And thus nothing sensible gets done about the insult which remains buried alive, where it infests and grows until it reaches some infection stage, and then the trouble is completely introvert, like a sore inner wound you only feel but cannot dress, and turns perhaps into some metastasis. Still, that is far better than to actually strike back in blindness, hatred and revenge, of short-sighted brain bankruptcy, with no idea of the inevitable consequences. Thus we have this vicious circle of political insanity, each madman of his own fanatical establishment, just thinking of his own group egoistic interests, manipulated into power for destructive reasons, like the Bush impostor in the White House, stealing presidency from Al Gore, whose main concern is universal welfare, global warming problems and the future, while the short-sighted impostor lunacy, by sheer incompetence, turns international discussions into failures, triggering the 9/11 sabotage attacks against civilization, which politically then are turned into a crazy war merry-go-round, manipulated forth against Afghanistan at first, and then Iraq, by the oil mafia governing the president, and thus is world politics turned into a mess of trouble, just to close the eyes to much more vital problems, like the melting ices in Antarctica and Greenland, that will drown the world if nothing brings it to a halt. Natural problems of man's own short-sighted making that concerns humanity, the future and all nature, clinically free from egoistic thinking and vendettas, say no more. I stifle and can only pray and cry, forgetting all about my bleeding nose.